Welcome to another episode of Professional Builders Secrets. In this episode, I interview Glen Fitzgerald from Worx Safety. Worx Safety helps building companies streamline their on-site processes, improve subcontractor compliance, and reduce unnecessary risks that enter profitability. Too many builders see compliance and safety as a checkbox, but with the right systems in place, these processes can actually improve your bottom line and make you run a more efficient business. So keep listening to find out how refining your on-site systems could help you run a more profitable building company. This episode of Professional Builders Secrets is brought to you by Apparatus Contractor Services. Apparatus provides full scope, end-to-end QuickBooks precision construction accounting and CFO services for residential builders. If you feel like you can't completely trust your weekly and monthly financial reports, or you feel like you're flying blind, Apparatus will rebuild and operate your QuickBooks accounting system and give you precision construction accounting capability you can trust. Learn more at apparatusteam.com or on the APB Rewards partner directory.
The problem is, as a builder, we've got a small amount of training on how to meet our obligations. That leads to miscompliance, the safety risks, and then ultimately the costly delays and fines. If they're using a paper-based system, it's difficult to manage, maintain, track and report. So you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they can be directly affected to the directors, supervisors on site looking after those sites. The safety isn't just about avoiding fines. It's about that competitive advantage. Your builders just need to think of safety not as an obligation, but as a growth strategy.
Welcome to Professional Builders Secrets, the podcast for building company owners wanting to grow safely and securely. I'm your host, Will Blunt, and today I'm joined by Glen Fitzgerald from Worx Safety. Glen, welcome to the show.
Hi, Will. Thanks for having us on the show. It's great to be a part of the APB podcast and the great things that APB is doing for the members and the industry.
Yeah, well, great to have you on, Glen, and thanks for taking some time today. Before we dive into the details of the interview, do you want to give a bit of a background about who you are and what Worx does?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the co-founders at Worx Safety. So Worx Safety is an online safety software. So my background is in the building and construction industry for the past 24 years. So I started out in the plumbing industry, running and owning my own plumbing company. And then I moved into completing the builder's license and then moved into running and owning a residential building company. So I've owned and run multiple small businesses and know firsthand how hard it is and stressful it is to manage your WHS requirements for a company, PCBU for a business. So 10 years ago, we set out to develop a complete online digital safety software for businesses to automate and streamline their WHS requirements. So to solve that problem. So eliminating the paperwork and spreadsheets from the office and workplace, and then moving to a simple and easy to use safety software. So as builders, we need well-structured systems in place for those key components. When we look at our story and the lessons that we've learned as business owners and working with industry professionals, we've created a structured framework to deliver a consistent outcome in a turnkey product, helping businesses systemise their business for success.
Interesting, just to go back to your story quickly, coming from plumbing and then into building is not a traditional path, I guess, in the industry. From most of the builders I've spoken to, they're often carpenters first before they start their building company.
How I kind of structure it straight out of school into my apprenticeship, then, running an own plumbing company. But then while I was doing that, I was doing my own developments while I was going through that process. I was doing my own builds and developments. And then through that time, the love for the building, that's where I moved into, wanted to be, going through that builder process. So I went through, completed my carpentry apprenticeship, and then while I was doing that, I'd done my builder's license. So, and then moved into managing and running my own residential building companies.
Yeah, cool. Got all the skills then.
Yeah,
Don't
got
blame
skills
you for
in the background there. Yeah. Oh, it's still a good industry. It's a hard industry, but it's good industry, But it just gave us the good stepping stones to the areas and working with good businesses through that journey as well, with their good structured systems in place. So learn a lot.
I'm going to be honest with you. The whole concept of on site safety and compliance and everything like that, it sounds like a bit of a dry topic. So I want to get to the root of why this is important for builders. And that is really how it can impact their bottom line and the profitability of their building companies. Because I think that's where it's going to catch more people's attention. Can you talk to me about what mistakes you see builders making with the compliance and on site safety side of things, which could be impacting their bottom line?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the common mistake for business owners, trade business owners as well, is just not having the correct systems in place. The problem is, as a builder, we've got a small amount of training on how to meet our obligations. Many builders think, they'll sort it out as they go, but that leads to miscompliance, the safety risks, and then ultimately the costly delays and fines. When we look at that, the small fines that come from it, but the large fines that can come from incidents and accidents on site. So you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, and they can be directly affected to the directors, supervisors on site looking after those sites. If they're using a paper based system, it's difficult to manage, maintain, track, and report. Another common issue is the poor communication and safety protocols that aren't shared and then reinforced with the teams, especially subcontractors on site. So that's where Work Safety takes that systemised approach to digital workplace health and safety. It's just a series of simple steps that provide that consistent outcome. This is something that every business owner needs to master, or once they've got it set up, delegate that within the business. For a business, they just got to think of, what's costing them more. So investing in a proper safety system or facing the fines and project delays and legal risks that come with owning and operating a business. So, but when you look at it, if businesses want to scale, make serious money, they need to have an effective WHS system in place. That's when we look at, if it's a small business or a large business, having mastered that area creates that system for success. So obviously with APB members, the businesses that have those systems in place, they're set to scale. If a business doesn't have a system in place, that's where we've got that turnkey product. We've got the packages for builders, trade business owners as well. So that structured framework is set to deliver that consistent outcome. And that's, from our experience, obviously being in the industry, but working with, industry leaders, consultants, relevant authorities, could transfer our knowledge to the builders and business owners, and that's trying to deliver better standards for everyone.
Can you think of a scenario, like just a basic scenario, on site scenario, where not having a system like this in place could result in, a big fine or, obviously someone being injured or even die, which is the worst case scenario?
As builders would know, safe work turns up to site or the relevant authorities. The first thing they're trying to do is scramble to get that documentation and details and swims and induction records. That's the process that is the problem. In turn of that, there should be, inviting them in. Okay, this is the system I use. This is my process, outlining those details, speaking to the relevant authorities and, seeing how they can get the better outcomes of having that system in place. So directly to the business owners, if they don't have a system in place, they are exposed. They need to have those defined system in place. Obviously, it's going to make it a more efficient business and operation of having them in place. But we're talking if there is an incident, this can lead to, hundreds of thousands of dollars and stress and impacts that it has on the business owner.
What you're saying is the safety inspector shouldn't be someone you fear if you've got the right systems in place. You can build a relationship with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Clients with having that system in place where it is a simple and easy system and they just got to follow the steps, having that in place, and especially for the site side of it, having all the requirements they need for that site side of it, it provides everything is transparent across all their workers or their contractors' workers, making those projects more efficient, and then the quality side of it as well. So, and then obviously for insurances and premiums. So when we look at that side of it, for subcontractors, if their insurances and premiums aren't up to date and in the system, which is all automated within Worx, that can come back onto that principal contractor.
We can dive into a bit more of that subcontractor stuff in a moment, but can you go into a few more details around how builders can look to improve these processes and get a more robust system in place?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we look at that side of it, business owners, like it is high risk. So running a business, especially in a high risk industry, and it's about managing those projects. It's about managing the hidden risks that impact both the operations and personal well-being. But builders and trade business owners, they face those complex risks at both the company level and then at operational level. So this means looking beyond the job site, the risk that can exist in processes, systems, and even the business decisions that they make. So builders and trade owners, face those risks of the legal and financial risks. So fines, legal, insurances and premiums, like we said. Subcontractor insurances not being current, the liability can also shift to principal contractors, increasing the legal fines and risks, incidents, and then the operational side of it as well, workplace accidents, and then the hidden costs, so the stress, decision fatigue for the business owners. So that's where we take that structured framework to make the difference. So obviously, our framework provides that systematic approach to managing those risks, ensuring the businesses have clear strategies in place to reduce the exposure and then to improve their safety outcomes. So protect their long-term success for the business.
So, Glenn, how can builders then improve their on-site processes and systems to reduce the risk that you've been talking about?
Yeah, so reduce the risk to the business owners is, looking to have that system in place where they can meet all their requirements, and then it's all automated and tracked and recorded within the system. For building and construction, it's high risk. So running a business, especially in high risk industries, isn't just about managing the projects, it's about managing the hidden risks that impact both operations and the well-being of the business owners. So builders and trade business owners face complex risks at both the company level and at an operational level. So this means looking beyond the job site and the risks that exist within the processes and systems and even the business decisions. Builders and trade business owners face the risks that can impact the legal and financials. So, fines and legal actions, non-compliance, the safety regulations can lead to hefty fines and prosecutions. The insurance and premiums, so frequent incidents can spike insurance costs, affecting profitability and then future profitability for the companies. Additionally to that, the subcontractor insurance and premiums, if they're not current, the liability, it shifts back onto that principal contractor, increasing both legal and financial risk. So incidents, obviously a serious workplace incident can halt operations and then lead to project delays and revenue loss. So operational side of it, the risk, the workplace accidents, injuries not only harm the workers, but disrupt the workflows and damage the company's reputation. So that obviously, again, the subcontractor liability, if a subcontractor isn't compliant, the legal responsibility falls back onto that principal contractor. So the hidden costs, the stress on the business owner, so constant worry, so the fear of missing something crucial, whether it's a safety breach or a compliance issue, can be overwhelming for the business owner. So decision fatigue, juggling the safety, operations, clients' demands, and then the financial management, obviously draining, could lead to burnout as well, and then the personal impact. So the stress doesn't stay at work, it follows the business owner home, affecting their relationships and their overall health. So that's where work safety with our structured framework tries to make that difference. So looking at it with the framework provides a systematic approach to managing risks, ensuring that businesses have clear strategies in place to reduce the exposure and improve the safety outcomes and protect the long-term success of the business.
Yeah, can you dive into more detail around like what that actually looks like for a builder if they want to get some better on-site processes and systems in place? What would they need to do?
Yeah, it's legislative requirement that they have those systems in place and how they manage those systems. So that's
Mm.
where we look at if it's a paper-based system, how you manage those details and keep all that information together. Obviously, I know ways to do it. It's the folder for site-specific and capturing all those details and maintaining it and having that information stored and recorded for a 7-year period. So They need to provide that where you can provide that information. So that's where we look at it. Works safety, it's everything you need to do for your work health and safety covered in that one area. So the systemized approach with the modules, so the automation, when anything's in the system, everything's automated for an employee. The onboarding process, what you need to capture from your workers, and then obviously track and record on that information. So when a worker comes through and they onboard their workers, capturing the information that they need to capture. So construction industry, a contractor's license, high risk work license, and then taking them through the inductions. So that's at a company level. So the inductions that they need to cover for their company, and obviously any training requirements. So training is a big area for the clients, and we work with having the training set in place, which pretty much outlines their systems and processes. So when we look at good trade businesses or good builders, they've got a system and a process of how they do things. So, and that's exactly the same of structuring that in a central location. So everything's there associated to their business and their operations. Contractor compliance, pre-qualification and vetting the contractors, incident management, issues and defects, having a simple way to raise issues on site, track and record on those issues. So that could be a contractor's worker, a direct worker, and then that's all recorded in and against those sites. So those details can be referenced at a later date. Digital safe work method statements. So for high-risk work activity, having those digital swims in a central location, easy to use. So, if they're on site, either web-based or app-based, being able to complete those details. Digital forms, so the forms required on site. So your workplace inspections, your toolbox talks, your quality forms associated to your sites and managing your sites, which is the checklists and details that you need to kind of have in place to provide that consistent outcome for your quality. Digital ITPs, registers, but then tying everything into the site-specific nature of it. So you got your compliance level where you're meeting everything you need to meet, but then tying it into the site-specific nature of it. So in a simple, easy format.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think you mentioned burnout earlier and like the impact it can have on the business owner in terms of just the sheer weight of pressure and in a high risk situation. And if you've got these systems and the training in place, then you can trust that your team can fall back and rely on those things rather than needing to always think about everything.
Absolutely. And that all just ties back to the system and the process. Every good business owner will have a system in place of how they do things and how the operations work. So if you can scale that and have that in place in a training video, or obviously SOPs and those kind of details where that's defined, it's in and associated to those workers that they can complete, but obviously given access to those workers where they can reference back. I know that some clients' relation to their workers, the workers might be at home and they want to refresh on how a system is completed. They can just jump on, review those details, but then having access to that, so then they've got the knowledge they need when they go to site of what their requirements are or what they need to meet in a system and a process.
Talk to me about subcontractor management, because a lot of new home builders use subcontractors as for a large portion of their work. I mean, that's just the way they operate. But it feels like one of the biggest risks in the business because they're not operating under your business necessarily. They're doing work for you. So can you talk to me about how that plays into these safety systems?
Yes, absolutely. So subcontractors to builders is high risk area. We have seen this over and over in the industry where builders are covering the cost of contractors' liability from defective works and workers' compensation claims. So, workers' comp claims can arise years after an incident. For example, if a subcontractor claims a serious injury occurred on site and seeks compensation, the claim may later involve the head contractor's liability. So the problem we have at the moment is when a workers' comp claim rises, the builders not having clear records of what happened on site, and this could be 2, 3 years, 5 years later, which builders technically required to maintain and record it for at least 7 years. So, and that's to defend against such claims, So head contractors must demonstrate that they're maintaining a safe work site. Taking that digital approach, saves and archives all those safety records against those sites and locations. So, your site-specific inductions you need to provide, your sign-in registers, safe work method statements are completed. But, for the builders, their toolbox talks they're completing, workplace inspections. So being able to provide all that information. Proving the contractor took proactive steps, obviously, as well to ensure, workplace health and safety.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying is like if something does arise in 3 or 5 years' time, you're going to have very little memory of what actually went on a specific date. But if you can dive into an online software such as Work Safety, for example, and go back to the records from that particular date, it's just going to immediately give you the peace of mind you need to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. But and then try and if you look at building companies at the moment, how they manage that and record all that information, like folders and paperwork, and then where you need to get access to that, it's just it's a nightmare. So, but that's obviously one of the steps and the processes that we look to solve for builders. So that's just a key area that in work safety and obviously with software systems. So when you engage those contractors, you're capturing your legislative requirements that you need to capture. So for companies, it's the mandatory areas that they need to step and progress through. So for Australian businesses, obviously they've got to capture the ABM relevant to the company, which they should be checking within our system. It's API, feeds to ASIC, populates their company structure. So if it's a company, it's mandatory they capture their workers' compensation relevant to the company. And then obviously a sole trader partnership capturing relevant details, but the contractor's license associated to that contracting company, the public liability, professional indemnity, if they've got it. But then obviously doing the vetting against those contractors in relation to the safety systems that they use. If we look at a roofing company that you engage a roofing company, you should be going through the process of capturing their information, get a reference to their safety systems so that those contractors, their system in place to manage their high-risk work activity on site, and that's all tied into the systems. But obviously another area is specific contractor agreements. So agreement covers scope of works, WHS obligations, indemnity and liability clauses. So that ensures that all the safety documentation is properly maintained and accessible for audits, insurance claims, or hopefully not, but legal defences as well.
Yeah, I feel like we've spoken a lot about the bad side of everything. It's like, cover yourself, reduce risk. If the worst was to happen, like a lawsuit or a claim or someone was to get injured or all those kind of things. But I think the one thing we've probably skimmed over is the fact that if you've got a really solid system in place for operating your building sites that's digital and gives you the peace of mind to trust other people to do things with training and all that kind of stuff, you're just running a more efficient business anyway, and it's going to be a better experience for your clients, a better experience for you as the building company owner, and everything.
Absolutely, yeah. So having that in place, it's you set the scale. So you're going to be more efficient, and then on the sites, with your sites and the work's getting completed, so the quality side of it as well. So that's where we're seeing improvements in the area of the quality and compliance on site, and that's just tied in with training modules, and then the site-specific nature of it. So having those certain processes and systems that are followed, and then giving that consistent outcome for the sites and then the quality of work that's coming out.
Where do you see this going in the future? I'm actually just trying to dig up our research into the residential construction industry at the moment from the State of Residential Construction Industry report. We discussed this off air briefly, Glenn, but the use of health and safety software is alarmingly low in North America and the United States and Canada, quite high in New Zealand, and then Australia's a little bit behind on New Zealand, but much further ahead of North America. Yeah, where do you see that environment changing as we move forward into the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, look, I think the culture shift is happening right now within the industry. So for years, safety is seen as just a tick in a box, a bit of a compliance headache, and just paperwork for the office. But that mindset is changing. So forward-thinking builders are starting to realise that the safety isn't just about avoiding fines; it's about that competitive advantage, that's going to drive that consistent outcome. So the companies that thrive in the next decade won't be the ones that are cutting corners. They're going to be the ones with the systems in place to create safer and more efficient work sites. So builders just need to think of safety not as an obligation, but as a growth strategy. So I think that's the shift, and businesses that get ahead of the curve will outperform those who don't. And I think that where the building industry is going, it's, with that systemized approach, it's having that training also in the system. So, as we go through and getting more workers into the industry, having those defined training processes in the system or with relevant authorities, they're going to have that system for success. They're key quality areas that they need to meet. So obviously Australia is heavy legislated, so it's more demanding for Australia businesses to have it in place. And obviously, when we look at overseas in the States, it's obviously having those systems in place for success, not only for the safety protocols for their company, but for that growth strategy as well.
Well, Glenn, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. For APB members out there, if you want to check more out about Worx Safety, they are a rewards partner, so you can check them out on our rewards directory, and we'll put a link in the show notes. For any other builders out there, worxsafety.com.au. That's WORX safety.com.au. Is that the best place for people to go, Glenn?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just jump on the website, and from there you can book a demo, free demo, run you through the system and the details. And like you said, for APB members, also they get the further discount as being a rewards member. So yeah, reach out. Work Safety is here to help, and we'd love to provide that platform for you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Glenn.
Not a problem. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And a big thank you as well to our listeners, wherever you are in the world. If you like the show today, please subscribe to Professional Builders Secrets on your platform of choice. And if you're feeling generous, leave us a review. But until next time, have a great day.